Let me turn it over to Guillaume and then ask, among these four categories of methods, and you make this point, I think, in the first chapter, among the articles, the 144 articles that you looked at in JCPA, what's the breakdown? Which is the most prevalent method being used, at least in the JCPA, as a method of comparative analysis? And I guess more generally, if you scale that up to the field as a whole, even to work that people are doing outside of the journal, what are the leading methods? What is at the front of the pack in terms of how the field is doing comparative research? What methods are the most important?
Roughly, what people are used to calling statistics methods. But then you have to divide into two groups, because you have descriptive statistics, which is probably, I'm talking about half the sample. So between 144 papers, that's about 70 something who refer to stats as methods. Well, then you have a very significant divide between what is, generally speaking, descriptive statistics, that is political economics, and what we use when we need to measure something, and not necessarily looking for a causal relationship. I mean, we can do fine with correlations. And so that's about 60% of the stats, and the 40% of the remaining stats are more from econometrics and trying to build up models that can be predictive. Then you have a very small amount of research, at least published in the JCPA, if we consider it representative of the field. A very small portion of what the so-called experimental methods, but it's also to be divided between at least two great types of experiments. And there's a third one that comes out. The proper randomized control trials, which are probably the most promising research papers that we've been publishing. And then you have a group of papers based on policy experiments, which is a totally different thing, particularly from China. And there's a third group of experiments that comes from survey experiments. That is more recent, but the sample stops at mid-2024. So obviously we'll have to look at the volume 27 and the forthcoming volume 28. Because I think survey experiments is a very promising technique for that, because there's so much research on the social networks and big data. It's probably the most trendy and the most I don't know if it's a fad or if it's gonna crystallize, but it's getting speed.